What is up, bros and broettes? I'm Inkslasher, and welcome to another episode of Versus, the series where we put two weapons head-to-head, or sometimes other things, to see which one is better and make you a better Call of Duty player. Now today we're looking at two semi-automatic assault rifles, and two of which that are very, very similar. First of all, we are looking at the M1 Garand, definitely one of the most iconic weapons in all of Call of Duty World War II, and we're putting it head-to-head against the SVT. Now, the SVT is a weapon that you unlock once you prestige the infantry division. Now, the reason why I took these two weapons and decided to put them head-to-head is because they are so similar, both of which have a really low fire rate with a really high damage profile. You put those together, and I wanted to see which one would be better in that exact field. So, as always, if you enjoy the series and want to see more Versus episodes, the way to show me is by hitting that like button and letting me know down in the comments you want to see go head-to-head next. But without further ado, let's get into it and compare these two weapons. So as always, let's start off with the damage profile, and it just so happens that on both of these weapons the damage profile is extremely simple. Both weapons are a 2 to a 3 bullet kill, and not only that, they actually both have the exact same range. Both of them drop off from a 2 to a 3 bullet kill at 50 meters. After 50 meters, you are looking at the 3 bullet kill. However, that being said, most of the time and most of the gunfights you're going to get into are going to be within those 50 meters. So most of the time, both weapons are going to be a 2 bullet kill. That being said, they both drop off at 50 meters. So because of that, I can't give out any points for damage or range. That being said, both of these weapons have different fire rates. So the fire rate for the M1 Garand is 324 RPM, whereas the fire rate for the SVT is 257 RPM. So the difference between the two is about 70 RPM, and obviously that is much better for the M1 Garand, especially considering the fact that both weapons have the exact same damage profile and the exact same range. So for that, the M1 Garand gets +1 point and takes the lead. But not only that, but because both weapons have the exact same damage profile, but the M1 Garand has a better fire rate, it means that at every single range, close range, long range, mid range, the M1 Garand is going to have a better time to kill. And that is absolutely huge, and for that, the M1 Garand gets +1 point. But not only that, just a quick tidbit of information, the M1 Garand also has the best time to kill out of any weapons aside from sniper rifles or shotguns in the entire game. That being said, if you miss one bullet, just one bullet, it all of a sudden drops below most of the other weapons in the game. That being said, it does have the fastest, assuming you hit all of your bullets. And speaking of bullets, the next thing we're going to talk about here is magazine size. Now, since both weapons are semi-automatic high-damage weapons, both weapons actually have a pretty small magazine. The M1 Garand has a magazine of 8 bullets, whereas the SVT has a magazine of 10. Therefore, it's a little bit better for the SVT, but not only that, with the M1 Garand, since you can fire faster, you are going to go through bullets much faster than the SVT. So for that reason, the SVT gets +1 point for having the larger magazine. And right when it seems like the SVT is making a little bit of a comeback, the next stat comes along, which is the reload speed. So the M1 Garand reloads in 1.1 second, whereas the SVT reloads in 1.7 seconds, which is 0.6 seconds slower than the M1 Garand, which is extremely noticeable and actually quite a large deal. Because both weapons have a small magazine, it means you're going to be reloading very frequently. And because of that, I would actually rather have a faster reload speed as opposed to a larger magazine. So even though the SVT has 2 bullets on top of the M1 Garand, the M1 Garand has just such a faster reload speed at 1.1 second. And because of that, it gets +1 more point and extends that lead. So another two things we can look at for these two weapons is recoil and the iron sights of the weapon. As it turns out, both iron sights are similar. They're both pretty enclosing and small, and for both weapons, I prefer to use some sort of reticle. On top of that, the amount of recoil for both weapons, it is extremely similar. Both have very high amounts of recoil, both of which I suggest using grips on. So that being said, I give out 0 points for both of those things. And the final thing we got is the aim down sights time. So most assault rifles in this game have an aim down sights time of 0.25 seconds, and this is true for the M1 Garand. However, the SVT, you aim down sights in 0.23 seconds. Now, I almost didn't want to give out a point for this because it's such a small amount, you can't even really tell the difference when you're using the two weapons. That being said, though, the stat is there, and I am going to give out +1 point for the SVT for that. That being said though, the score has spoken, and if we look at the score, it is very clear that the M1 Garand is a better weapon. But that being said, I really don't think the score does it justice. The M1 Garand is simply a much better weapon than the SVT. The main reason for that is because it always has a better time to kill, and the M1 Garand is going to be better in pretty much any situation I can come up with. Even though it has a smaller magazine, it makes up for it with a faster reload time. So like I said, the M1 Garand is always going to be better than the SVT, unless they come out in the future and maybe give the SVT a little bit of a buff. But that being said, the M1 Garand is the winner this week, and I think it's definitely deserving of it. But guys, let me know what you think down in the comment section below, and let me know which two weapons you would like to see go head-to-head next time on Versus. Also, if you enjoy the Versus series and want to see more, the way to show me is by hitting that like button, and if you're new to the channel and like what you see, you can always hit that subscribe button. But guys, I hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, peace out.